9 experienced hikers entered a frozen mountain range in the Siberian wilderness. They were strong, they were prepared, they were disciplined, and yet something happened that forced them to cut their way out of their own tent in the middle of the night and flee into a deadly snowstorm with no shoes, no jackets, and zero chance of survival. When rescuers finally reached the site, the scene they found defied all logic, and to this day, nobody can say with certainty what actually happened. It's midnight somewhere, and tonight I have a story for you. On January 1959, a group of 9 seasoned Russian hikers from the Ural Institute set out on a winter expedition into the northern Ural Mountains. They were led by Igor Dyatlov, who was a disciplined and highly respected leader with a reputation for caution and precision. Their goal was to reach the remote Orton Mountain during a harsh Siberian winter, which was a challenge that only experts would attempt. The group was, however, well equipped and well trained and absolutely 100% capable of completing this journey. Nothing suggested that this expedition would become one of the most disturbing unsolved mysteries in modern history. On February 1st, the hikers set up camp on the slopes of a peak the locals called Dead Mountain. The weather was brutal, blizzards, freezing winds, and whiteout snow conditions. But their final diary entries saw nothing unusual. They cooked their dinner, they joked, and they also rested. Then, sometime after midnight, everything changed. When rescuers reached the campsite over a week later, they found the hikers' tent cut open from the inside. Not unzipped, not torn by weather, slashed intentionally as if its occupants had no time to open it properly. The hikers fled into sub-zero temperatures, wearing only socks, thin clothing, and in some cases, no clothes at all. Footprints showed that they walked at first calmly and trying to stay together, but the trail quickly descended into complete chaos. 2 hikers were found first near the small cedar tree where they tried to build a fire. Their hands were worn raw as if they'd clawed at the bark trying to climb it. 3 more hikers were then discovered between the tree and the tent, as if they'd attempted to crawl back to the tent. It took 2 more months before the final 4 were found in a ravine, and their injuries only deepened the mystery. 1 had a shattered skull, 2 had massive chest fractures, equivalent to the types of fractures that you would receive in a head-on car crash. Another had missing soft tissue with no signs of any sorts of animal activity. Yet, there was no external wounds, no struggle, no footprints from anybody else, just injuries that nobody could explain. Over the decades, experts and investigators have proposed dozens of different theories. The official explanation, a natural force the hikers were unable to overcome. And obviously this explanation satisfied nobody. So here are a few different possibilities of what happened. A katabatic wind, which is a sudden violent wind blast that's really strong and capable of creating panic and forcing the group to abandon the tent instantly. And this theory is plausible, but it doesn't explain all the trauma that the hikers received. The second theory was an avalanche. For years, this was the favoured theory, but the slope was a little bit too shallow for an avalanche, and snow analysis doesn't support that an avalanche could have happened. So the third theory is the infrasound theory, which is a rare wind phenomenon capable of inducing fear, nausea, and panic in people. But the question remains, would that cause those types of crushing injuries that the hikers received? The fourth theory is military activity. Some believe that the group stumbled into testing grounds, parachute mines, or experimental weapons, but there were no debris and there was no radiation aside from one of the hikers' mildly contaminated jacket, but it's never been confirmed whether or not the military was actually doing testing in the area. Now, another theory was that they had a fight, so the group fought within themselves, but investigators ruled this out because the injuries were far, far too severe. The sixth theory is that it was actually something unexplained. And if you speak to locals or hear any of the locals talk about this particular night or the nights around this, they did speak of strange lights reported in the sky. Others mentioned cracking sounds echoing across the mountains that nobody could explain. Some believe that the hikers fled from something that they couldn't see but could somehow feel. In the end, no single explanation perfectly fits all the evidence at hand. So, more than 60 later, the Dyatlov Pass Incident remains one of the most chilling unsolved mystery cases in history. 9 hikers, a torn tent, impossible injuries, and a final journey that ended in terror for reasons that we may never fully understand. Now, if you like dark stories told at midnight, subscribe. I drop 3 new mysteries every single week, and until then, I'll see you at midnight.